Welcome to today's lecture on flexible bronchoscopy, preparation, procedure and technique. After today's class, you should be able to explain pre-procedural preparation for flexible bronchoscopy, able to briefly describe about equipment and supplies for bronchoscopy, and describe bronchoscopy technique including entering tracheobronchial tree and airway inspection. Introduction. Bronchoscopy is a procedure that visualizes the tracheobronchial tree by placing an optical instrument inside the airways. Flexible bronchoscopy is used for a growing number of diagnostic and therapeutic indications such that the clinician should be aware of the potential value of this procedure for their patient. Pre-procedural preparation. Patient selection is an important thing. Patient should be selected for flexible bronchoscopy after reviewing the history and clinical examination findings and carefully weighing the indications and contraindications. First, determine if it is really necessary to undergo bronchoscopy for the patient. Patients are generally asked not to eat for at least 6 hours prior to the procedure, and for patients who are intubated, feeding is discontinued for the same period of time, that is, feeding is withheld for 6 hours. Informed consent. Once a patient has been selected for flexible bronchoscopy, the clinician should obtain informed consent from the patient or a designated decision maker in case the patient is a minor or is not in a state to give consent. Then a designated decision maker can also give the consent. This informed consent involves discussing the indications, potential complications and benefits. What are the benefits of doing the procedure for the patient and what are the likely complications arising from the procedure. This should be explained. And alternatives of the planned procedure. If bronchoscopy is not done, then what are the other options available for diagnosing and treatment of the patient? This should also be explained. And the type of sedation, whether we are going to give moderate sedation or general anesthesia or not giving sedation at all this should be discussed and documented in the informed consent. Personnel. Bronchoscopy can be performed in various hospital settings, including the bronchoscopy or endoscopy suite, operating room, intensive care unit, post-operative anesthesia care unit, and emergency department. In all settings, an experienced team is essential to perform bronchoscopy safely, efficiently, and successfully. Ideally, the team should include the bronchoscopist, a nurse, and a technician. The technician is needed to set up the equipment, assist the bronchoscopist with collection of the specimens or performance of additional procedures, and clean the scope after completion of the procedure. The nurse usually does the pre-procedure evaluation, including medication review, and then will monitor and record the patient's vital signs and each step of procedure as well as administer moderate sedation. At minimum, at least one qualified assistant in addition to the bronchoscopist should be present, especially in an emergent situation. So sometimes complications can arise in bronchoscopy and that time the bronchoscopist will require some help. So at least one qualified assistant should be available for giving the help. What are the equipments and supplies? All equipment and materials necessary to perform the procedure, administer sedation, and manage the airway should be set up prior to the bronchoscopy. This includes bronchoscope, image processor with light source, and video monitor for bronchoscopes utilizing video. Protection equipment including gloves, non-sterile gowns, masks with plastic shield. Sometimes even N95 masks may be necessary especially in the present scenario, and shoe covers. Fluoroscopy equipment may be necessary if fluoroscopy is planned, and if additional procedures such as biopsy, needle aspiration, laser or cryosurgery are anticipated, then these should be available in the suit and tested before induction of anesthesia. Topical anesthetic including an aerosolized anesthetic, usually a 10 ml vial of 4% lignocaine spray for administering above the vocal cords, and topical anesthetic, usually 20 ml of 1 to 2% lignocaine for administering below the vocal cords, and anesthetic gel. These should be available, the spray, the injection for topical application, and the gel for nasal application. Then peripheral intravenous catheters or sometimes central venous lines for patients who are in the ICU. Planned sedative agent like midazolam or fentanyl if sedation is being planned. Then we should also have specimen traps for collecting bulk specimen, and additional instruments like tissue sampling, brushes, biopsy forceps, aspiration needles, etc. should be available. Equipment to perform endotracheal intubation if needed, which include endotracheal tubes and laryngoscope. Equipment to monitor and record the blood pressure, cardiac rhythm, heart rate, respiratory rate, and pulse oximetry. Airway adjuncts such as oxygen and oxygen tubing, a bag valve mask, and a bite block if the oral route is planned. So this bite block is placed in the mouth to prevent the patient from biting the bronchoscope when it is introduced through the oral route. Multiple syringes are required, usually 10, 20 and 50 or 60 ml syringe. Sterile normal saline for flushing, washing, or taking bronchoalveolar lavage. Suction tubing and oral suction catheter, one tubing set for suctioning via the bronchoscope and another for oral suction to manage vomiting or oral secretions. Specimen collection jars with saline or fixative for collecting cytologic and or histopathological specimens. Then sometimes patient may have bleeding, especially after taking biopsy. So to control that, we require ice cold saline or epinephrine with a concentration of 1:10,000. We should also have resuscitation medications, including advanced cardiac life support medications. So all these things should be available and in a readily available and working condition in the bronchoscopy suite before performing the procedure. What about the topical airway anesthesia? After informed consent has been obtained and the setup is complete, the patient is usually brought into the procedure or operating room unless they are in the intensive care unit, in which case it may be performed in the bedside. It should be confirmed that the patient has not had anything to eat or drink during the 6 hours prior to the administration of topical airway anesthesia. This is very important because if patient had taken something orally a few hours ago, then patient may aspirate during the procedure. He may omit during the procedure, which will result in aspiration. The patient is then placed on continuous cardiac and pulse oximetry monitors. Supplemental oxygen is administered when required, usually 2 to 6 liters per minute by nasal cannula, and intravenous access is established. The oropharynx and both nasal passages are generally anesthetized topically, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes to perform. So for anesthetizing the oropharynx, the upper airway, oropharynx, vocal cord and trachea, it is typically anesthetized by aerosolizing topical anesthetic, usually 1 or 2% lignocaine and occasionally 4% lignocaine is sprayed into the oropharynx so that the gag reflex is inhibited during bronchoscopy. This can be done using a nebulizer or manual spray, which deposit anesthetic into the posterior oropharynx. For anesthetizing the nose, the nasal passage is anesthetized by squirting anesthetic gel, usually 1 to 2% lignocaine, into the each nostril. The patients may be asked to sniff the gel into the nostril. When an oral route is planned, a bite block is placed in the mouth to prevent the patient from damaging the bronchoscope by accidental biting, especially if moderate sedation is planned. However, topical anesthesia of the oropharynx is still necessary, and topical anesthesia of the nasal passage is also often performed in case the nasal route becomes necessary if the oral route fails. Route of entry of the bronchoscope. It is usually pre-planned. There are various different routes, out of which nasal route is preferred in most non-intubated spontaneously breathing patients. This is because the route permits easier insertion of the bronchoscope through the upper airways and the vocal cords. So this is the preferred route, past the bronchoscope through the nostril. But sometimes there may be some problem in introducing the bronchoscope nasally. Patient may have a nasal spur so that the nostrils are narrowed and there is not enough space to pass the bronchoscope. Or there can be some septal deviation or edema, etc. And sometimes there may be some nasal bleeding risk because of abnormalities in the nose. In such case, an alternative route has to be chosen. The alternative route is through the mouth. And there may be some patients who are having endotracheal tube in place, or some patients may be on tracheostomy, and in them we may have to do bronchoscopy. So in such patients, the bronchoscope can be passed through the endotracheal tube or through the tracheostomy tube. So it will enter the airways at the level of mid-trachea. Thus in these routes, it is not possible to inspect the vocal cords. This portion of airway is bypassed. Pre-procedural universal protocol. The universal pre-procedural and time-out protocol should be performed prior to beginning the procedure. So let's see what are the pre-procedure verification process requires that the clinician confirm that the correct patient is present and that the correct procedure is about to be performed on the correct site. In addition, the clinician must confirm that all of the relevant documentation like history and physical examination, documentation of allergies, signed consent form and radiological studies are available. So ensure that correct patient is there, correct procedure is planned, and all the relevant documentation are present. This should be done prior to starting any bronchoscopy procedure. And there is the universal timeout. This timeout requires that each member of the procedure team agree that the patient, procedure and site are correct. Documentation of the timeout is required. The bronchoscopist or operator should confirm with the team that all equipment necessary for the procedure is available and functional. Sedation. Moderate sedation, previously known as conscious sedation, is generally used during bronchoscopy. Most of the procedures which are simple does not require sedation also. We usually use sedation while performing procedures taking time, like endobronchial ultrasound procedure. Sedation should not be initiated until the procedure room is prepared, equipment checked, the timeout is done, the upper airway is anesthetized, and all required personnel are present. So once everything is ready, give sedation. Agents typically used include short-acting benzodiazepines like midazolam and opioids like fentanyl. Some complex bronchoscopic procedures like extensive organ plasma coagulation or procedures that require rigid bronchoscopy require deep sedation or general anesthesia, including low-dose propofol or opioid. Procedural technique: entering the tracheobronchial tree. Following topical anesthesia and sedation, the flexible bronchoscope is usually inserted through the nose. Oral and endotracheal or tracheostomy tube routes are additional alternatives, and the choice depends upon individual patient characteristics. For nasal and oral routes, the glottis is entered and inspected for mucosal abnormalities. The vocal cords are identified posterior to the epiglottis. Once the vocal cords are visualized, they are inspected for lesions and movement. Vocal cord lesions should be documented and imaged, so we should mention about them in the report. If moderate sedation is used, movement of both cords is observed during the phases of respiration and during vocalization of the letter E. So see whether vocal cords are moving equally and ask the patient to say E. Then the vocal cords will adduct. They will come close together and close. Sometimes in case of vocal cord paralysis, vocal cord may be fixed. They may not be moving and may be in the paramedian position. So document that vocal cords are functioning normally. Once the vocal cords are inspected, 1 to 2 ml of 2 to 4% lignocaine is sprayed through the working channel of the bronchoscope onto the vocal cords. This time, patient may develop coughing, but it will subsequently facilitate passage of the bronchoscope through the larynx by suppressing the cough reflex. Following the administration of lignocaine, the patient is instructed to take a deep breath, and the distal tip of bronchoscope is then passed into the trachea between the vocal cords during inspiration. So this will be crossed during period of inspiration. Forcing the bronchoscope through the vocal cord blindly or during expiration is not advised, as it is potentially damaging. So it should be passed smoothly while patient is taking in breath. Passing the bronchoscope through the vocal cord may cause coughing, tachypnea, and anxiety. Spraying additional lignocaine once the bronchoscope is passed through the upper trachea and taking a moment to reassure the patient while the distal tip of bronchoscope is held within the tracheal lumen is generally sufficient for these issues to resolve. So once bronchoscope is passed through the vocal cord, inject lignocaine there and reassure the patient that the difficult work is done. Just relax so that patient will be rid of anxiety. Otherwise, if patient is anxious, they will not cooperate for the further procedure. Once the patient has settled and the cough reflex is suppressed, the bronchoscopist can gently move forward in the trachea toward the carina, and the remainder of the endobronchial tree can be inspected and planned procedures performed. Topical airway anesthesia is typically administered throughout the airway inspection process via the working channel of the bronchoscope and especially before procedures. So inject lignocaine spray once when you see the vocal cords, next just after crossing the vocal cords, then at the carina, and then in the right and left bronchial tree at the secondary carina, and if required you can also inject before doing any procedure like biopsy. So the reference for today's lecture is taken from UpToDate. I will be uploading it in the website. Thank you.